No, I didn't decide I wanted to write about food particularly. I never did write about food particularly, but people read about that first, I guess. So I think I'm a food writer, but I'm not.
It was then that I discovered how to eat little dried sections of tangerine. My pleasure in them is subtle and voluptuous and quite inexplicable. I can only write how they are prepared. In the morning, in the soft, sultry chamber, sit in the window peeling tangerines, 3 or 4. Peel them gently. Do not bruise them as you watch soldiers pour past and past the corner and over the canal towards the washed Rhine. Separate each plump little pregnant crescent. If you find the kiss, the secret section, save it for Al.
Well, no, I don't think I'm a food writer anymore. I'm a love writer or a fish writer or a fowl writer, fowl, F-O-W-L. Or I just write about life, I guess, or living or breathing, or I never thought about writing about breathing, but I could.
The sections of tangerine are gone, and I cannot tell you why they are so magical. Perhaps it is that little shell, thin as one layer of enamel on a Chinese bowl, that crackles so tinily, so ultimately under your teeth. Or the rush of cold pulp just after it. Or the perfume. I cannot tell. There must be someone, though, who knows what I mean. Probably everyone does, because of his own secret eatings.
You can learn to be a writer by just writing, I think. The more you write, the better you get. I believe that very thoroughly. You just write and write. Whether or not you write for sale. I never did write for sale, you see, ever. Except once. I did do one, the magazine stuff after I had to earn a living, sure. My family, I've always been kind of an embarrassment to the family because I do use a byline, you see. And I'm 5th generation newspaper people, and so it just isn't done in our family. Except I did to make money. I didn't want to write for money. I found it was the only thing I could do but cook. And I could write better than I could cook probably, so I wrote for money. For instance, I was named M.F.K. Fisher. I kept that because I'd written one thing, and I signed to M.F.K. Fisher because I didn't want Father to know I was writing under my own name. And so let me see, I sold that thing. It was bought by Harper and Row. I didn't even know, Harper and Brothers. The Servant Forth was the first thing. And so I remember I went to London to meet the publishers because I was in Paris, I was in France, and I pranced in there. I was young, pretty good looking, I suppose, new hat and all that stuff. I'd never seen 2 more horrified looking men. They just went, ugh. And I wasn't used to that, I guess. So finally we got down to why were they so shocked? And they thought I was going to be a man. And a wispy young Don or something from Oxford. Here was I, this bouncy young critter. So we talked it all over, and they said, well, we'll keep M.F.K. Fisher because no woman writes about food the way you've done, so therefore we won't disillusion people. But Lucius Beebe was very important then in New York, and he fell madly for this boy. He thought I was a beautiful boy and writing under the name Fisher. And everybody laughed at him, because he moved in the same set that my sister-in-law did. Alkie Wolcott and people like that, Dorothy Parker, all those people. They all knew I was a girl. But Lucius Beebe was laughed at by them. And he couldn't stand it, so he always hated me, just hated me. Hated my guts, really. Last time I saw Lucius was on the train going up to Reno. And he was so grumpy to me, so disagreeable. He said there was only one seat left in the car, in the club car where I went to have a drink before dinner. And I said, do you mind if I sit down with you? And he said, yes, I do. I said, well, there's no place else. So he said, well, all right. And the poor porters, they didn't know what to do about it because he was so rude. And one of them whispered to me, that he owns the railroad. He owns the railroad. And I said, well, I know, but poor guy, But he said, well, don't expect to have dinner with me. And I said, I wouldn't eat with you for anything.
Dining partners, regardless of gender, social standing, or the years they've lived, should be chosen for their ability to eat and drink with the right mixture of abandon and restraint.
I do like simple things, though, and true things. I like it to be good food, the best.
And above all, friends should possess the rare gift of sitting. They should be able, no, eager, to sit for hours, 3, 4, 6, over a meal of soup and wine and cheese, as well as one of 20 fabulous courses.
I like honest food and honest writing, yes, I would say that, definitely.
Then, with good friends of such attributes, and good food on the board, and good wine in the pitcher, we may well ask, when shall we live, if not now?
What would I write about if I didn't write what I know? I'd be phony, and I don't like phony things. I really don't. But I suppose you could imagine. I have a good imagination, but I don't. I can't imagine writing about a fastuous feast of the court of Byzantine emperor. I could do it. Why? Lots of people tried it, and they've done much better than I ever would. And anyway, I don't know anything really about it. I just write what I know about, and I know about my dreams. So now and then I have a very acute dream life. I always cultivate it, rather. We all could, but I do deliberately. So when I have a real problem, I take it to my subconscious, not my unconscious, but way down. I don't bother it very often because you don't do that. You don't interfere with things, but now and then I have a real problem, I take it to my consciousness. But when I have a good dream, I just write it down. So I'm used to it by now, and I know I dream constantly. I love to dream. I settle a whole lot of things. I dream in color, I dream in sound, and in paragraphs and sentences and clauses. And if I don't like the right word in a dream, I change it around till it's the right word, because I'm writing all the time, unconsciously. Plus, I think that's partly newspaper training, because when you write on a paper, if the deadline's at 1 o'clock, you can't say, well, I'll do this tomorrow. God, now how would you say this? It has to be in your head or you can't do it. So if you're going to cover a story about an old lady who found a shoe in her yard, and it wasn't her shoe and it had a foot in it. Well, you have to say, at 6 o'clock, this you have to have the facts and everything there, make it logical, make it sensible, and come to an end. Or if it does come to an end, so it's under police investigation usually. If there's a foot in that shoe, no person attached otherwise. But I just thought of that, as an example. So you don't say, well, now, there was this old woman, but how would I best say that? You know what you have to say very directly and no adjectives or anything. So you say it.
Anne and I would go home with Father. That was as exciting as leaving it had been, to be alone with Father for the first time. We were out of the desert and into deep, winding canyons before the sun went down. We came to a shack where there was water for sale. Then we sat on a rough bench at the table, the 3 of us, in the deep green twilight, and had one of the nicest suppers I have ever eaten. That night, I not only saw my father for the first time as a person, I saw the golden hills and the live oaks as clearly as I have ever seen them since. And I saw food as something beautiful to be shared with people instead of a thrice daily necessity. I forgot what we ate, except there was a big, round peach pie. The crust was the most perfect I had ever tasted, and there was a quart mason jar full of thick cream. And we ate the whole pie and all the cream, and none of us said anything about it for many years, but it was one of the best meals we ever ate. Perhaps that is because it was the first conscious meal, for me at least, but the fact that we remember it with such queer clarity must mean that it had other reasons for being important. I suppose that happens at least once to every human. I hope so. And still the warm, round peach pie and the cool yellow cream we ate together that August night live in our hearts' palates. Succulent, secret, delicious.
So you say it. Well, I think that's wonderful training for anybody. And of course, I worked on my father's papers. We all did, all summer long. Well, I'm fifth generation newspaper, so we never had any bylines. So you don't sign what you've done. And then when I was about 24, I wrote a story about Laguna Beach where I lived, but I hid it by calling Las Olas. I don't know why I did this. It was so silly. But I published it in Westways, and I got $10 for the prose and $25 for the drawings, I remember. So I had a long talk with myself. Am I going to be a third-rate illustrator? Am I going to try to be a writer? I never thought of writing as a profession or job, because we'd always written. Very literate family. I read every single book that was ever written, I think, that came into my hands, because I started when I was reading fluently when I was 5, I guess. Started with the Bible, because I learned how to read from my grandmother, who taught me to read from the Bible, and that's very good, good for the language. It's King James Version. When we use the Old Testament first, so it was funny. I was thinking about the other day that, there's a whole chapter that says so-and-so begat and begat and begat. Gives the whole history of the Jewish pre-written, I guess. Abraham begat, so on. So I always thought that men begat men and women gave birth to women. I didn't know that women could give birth to men. And I thought that men, Abraham begat Isaac, or Isaac begat Joseph, and Joseph begat. So I always thought that men had the boys and women had the girls until I was the mother started having girls and boys both. Oh, I began writing when I was 5. I wrote a novel when I was 9. That was when I realized that I was entertaining people. So I stopped writing. I never did finish it, for one thing. I learned a good thing from it, though. I learned never to write about anything I don't know about, because I didn't know about anything then. I wrote about being in love, and I didn't know that. I wrote about being a nurse. I didn't know anything about nursing. The girl was during the war, you see, so the girl was a nurse, and the young man didn't know anything about men except my father. And he was not, the man was everything father wasn't, And I didn't know anything about the Morse code. This man was a radio operator on a naval ship, and didn't know anything about the Navy, or war, or peace, or anything. So I was writing a chapter a day, you see, and then at noon, Father would come home from work, and I realized very soon that Father and Mother were using as their laugh for the day. They weren't laughing at me, but they were having a wonderful time with this novel. And Father would say, well, now what's she doing today? And I soon cut out the fact that I was entertaining them, so I stopped the book. One time when I was in the 4th grade, I think it was, I began to do what the teacher was afraid was lying. So she talked with Mother, and they decided I wasn't lying at all. I was just escaping from my life and embroidering a bit. For instance, my grandmother Holbrook we lived with her, She lived with us or something. And so she was a very strict woman. I made her very romantic because I wanted her to be more glamorous than I thought she was. So I was reading about Jerusalem once and how the streets were so narrow that you could touch the sides. So I said, well, my grandmother, last time she was in Jerusalem, she said you could touch the sides of the streets. Well, they knew grandmother had not been in Jerusalem. So the teacher talked with my mother, and they were laughing themselves silly. Mother said something then I thought was very good. She said, when Mary Frances, 3 people see a cat crossing the street, they all say the cat crossed the street, but when Mary Frances says, she says it differently, but the cat does get across the street, I didn't embroider, but I just said it differently. That's true. I did have a way of saying things so that people think I'm maybe not exaggerating, but not lying, but not telling the truth. But I am. I really am. I think a good example of that was, do you remember a story I wrote called something about the old lady on the ship?
From the top of the gangplank, the doctor called again to me as I crawled awkwardly toward him.
She is dead.
And I cried up to him like a parrot, yes, she is dead. There seemed to be several people, but I remember only the doctor, stooping under the pipes, and on the floor, the very small body of Mrs. Marshall, with her jaw dropped and her hands looking as peaceful as a dead bird's claws. And the equally small sister standing with her back to us, holding their 2 heavy black handbags and my girls' topcoats. I did not know what to do. So I stepped over the high threshold and put both my arms around the living one, who seemed to shrink even smaller and cleave unto me as I know those words mean it. She sobbed in a way I had not heard before, with passion, but also rather like a rooster crowing.
I wrote that as a letter to my sister because that's exactly the way it happened. But it happened differently the way I said it than it would have if the ship's doctor had written it, or something. But it did happen exactly that way. I've never sent a thing to editors. They always ask me because there's very little good writing, and I wrote very well from the very first. I know I did. My syntax and stuff is just exactly the same now as it was then. I don't split infinitives. And they say I have style. I don't think I have any style at all. It's just that I know where the periods go, and I do use things that most people don't use, like I do use dots now and then, which everybody does. But also I know how to begin and end a sentence, and I hate sentences that are dangling, I don't like dangling things around. And I've never read anything I've ever published. When I have to do the proofs of a story or anything, I detach myself completely. I didn't write it. So I'm a very cruel editor. But I've never read anything that's in print. I just can't stand the thought of it. I told it, I was in analysis. I didn't go into analysis because I was too ill at first, then I was too well. But I was going to a psychoanalyst for quite a while. And he said, well, this is ridiculous. In fact, he said, you're sick. I said, yes, I'm sick. I know I'm sick. That's why I'm here, She said, well, just go and read anything you want to read, but read it and tell me about it. Well, I did. I got to about page 8 of something. I think it was a gastronomical me. I was sick as a dog. Barely made it to the bathroom. Oh gosh, it was terrible. So I told him that, and he said, well, you're sick. That's sick. And I said, yes, I know. So he said, well, forget it. So I did, and I've never read anything since then. Oh no, I'm the person who wrote it, but I just don't think about that person, Would you? I know some people who read and reread everything they've written. They love it, especially when it's in print. I don't. I think it's disgusting. I can't stand it. I think there's always that danger, of sounding rather pompous. I just hate it. So not everything is sententious, but I think, well, now why did I say it that way? Why didn't I say it the other way or some other way? In other words, I don't like it. Because once a thing is printed, it's not you, not yours. It belongs to the world, The way I'm sort of your victims today. Because you know more about me than I know about myself, probably. What I've said, what I've done, because I have not read any of this stuff. A lot of people, now Hemingway, he wrote everything 24 times, whether it was sentence saying, she came into the room 24 times. That's ridiculous, I think, waste of paper. It would be the same when he left it up, but he wanted to see if it sounded right and so on. That's silly. Well, he wrote one way, I write another, you see. And he wrote better. I think when he was good, he was masterful. I don't know whether I've ever been masterful or not, because I don't know. Because I never read it. So I don't know. So I don't have any preconceptions about my own self, you see, my own importance or unimportance or anything. I just write. I think there are 2 or 3 people I've known and liked and admired very much. I did not want to be imitative of, so I've avoided them. One is Colette. I've read everything she's written, but for years I didn't read Colette because people said, oh, she's Colette. She thinks she's Colette, or she writes like Colette or something. I don't write like Colette at all. I wish I did, but I don't. And Virginia Woolf was another one. I liked her, admired her very much. I stopped reading Virginia Woolf for a long time because I didn't want to write the way she did. You learn control through writing, I think. You take everything you want from anything. You remember things from your past or from somebody else's past. I'm sure if I were in China, I'd become almost Chinese for a while. You get what you take. You get everything you want from anything you like. And I happen to like everything I've done so far. I think everything you write is a conglomeration of your impressions and your thoughts and influences, every influence in the world. Well, we all eat. We all think about food or don't think about it or wish we had some or wish we didn't have that much or something. So it's part of our lives, And I early on thought, well, as long as we have to eat to live, we might as well have fun doing it. Enjoy it, as much as possible. If any. There should be some enjoyment of food, as there should be making love or keeping warm or, like that. That's one of the three basic needs in our lives, besides breathing. Air, we all need air. We also need food and love and warmth. Those are three needs we have. Oh, of course, everything is sexual. Everything. It sounds like Khrushchev. My cousin, or my number one nephew was VOA, and he had to go with Khrushchev the first time he came to this country, all over this country. So they were standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon once. This is true, because my nephew did it with him. And Khrushchev sort of flipped over the thing, And finally, Sean said to him, what does it make you think of, sir? What do you think of this? What does it make you think of? And he said, sex. And so Sean said, sex, why? People gasped, and they said, and old Khrushchev said, everything reminds me of sex. So the Grand Canyon did the way everything else did, So true, I think, really. You can say sexual, or you can say sensual, or you can say realistic, or you can say make-believe, or whatever. So, well, let me see. My first husband was Al Fisher, a beautiful man. He died I just had to stop living with him because I felt very much in love with Timmy Parrish, Dylan Parrish. And Al was not really in love with me at all. Anyway, I left him for Timmy Parrish, and then Timmy died finally. We were together about 7 years, I think. We were married about 10 minutes, I believe, legally. No more than that. A couple of weeks, I guess. Then I married Donald Frieda, and with Donald I had 2 children, and I didn't even know he didn't like children until I started the second one. One would do, but 2, my God, he damn near died, So I had to leave him because children did not ask to be born, and he was an older person. So I couldn't possibly have handled the 3 of them, so I left Donald. I've been married legally to 3 beautiful, wonderful men, good-looking and attractive and vital, much better than I, older than I too. So that Timmy lived now, he was 14 years older, so I'd be almost 100, you see, terribly old. But he didn't live, fortunately. I forget how old Timmy was.
We had a sort of palpable trust in each other. Sometimes it is called love or goodwill. We were 2 ghosts then. Our lives as normal living humans had ended in the winter in Delaware with Tim's illness. We were very live ghosts, and drank and ate and saw and felt and made love better than ever before, with an intensity that seemed to detach us utterly from life. Whatever it was in us, the result was mysterious and warming, and we felt it very strongly, in places like the restaurant Car di Milano, always. Until the last time. That was in the summer of 1939. By the time we got to Milano, everything was almost all right again. Before a few minutes, the shell had cracked. The world seeped in. We were not 2 ghosts, safe in our own immunity from the pain of living. Tim was a man with 1 leg gone, the other and 2 arms soon to go. A small, racked man with snowy hair and eyes large with suffering. And I was a woman condemned, plucked at by demons, watching her true love die too slowly. There in the train, hurrying across the ripe fields, feeling the tranced waiting of the people everywhere, we knew for a few minutes we had not escaped. We knew no knife of glass, no distillate of hatred to keep the pain of war outside. I felt illimitably old there in the train, knowing that escape was not peace, ever.
I think probably if I were scared of anything in the world, it'd be me. I'm scared of me sometimes. I'm scared that I won't be strong, or that that I might fail to do what I want to do. But if you're really frightened, you don't do a thing. And Some things you have to do, whether you want to or not. It's not a question of wanting to. The older I get, the less time I have, And I've always been aware of the passage of time, even when I was young, very young. And how it's just terrible. I've always loathed the phrase, let's kill some time. Because time should never be killed, I just hate that. And people say, oh God, we've got 3 hours, what do we do with it? I always know what I'm going to do. I have to know because so little time. There really is so little. Although I can say that at 80, be 80 next month or something. I do believe there's so little time for anybody. If you really want to do what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do it. I don't know. I think your life edits you a bit. Different things happen to you. If we knew what was going to happen, but I suppose we could edit it. Now, I know if I've written a story, I know what the story is about and how it's going to end, probably. But you don't know how anything will end in life, do you? I don't, certainly. Or when. I certainly thought I'd be dead by now, and I'm not, I didn't care one way or the other, but I just thought, well, 70 years and 10. I'm overstepping it a bit, but it doesn't matter to me. Fine.
People ask me, why do you write about food and eating and drinking? Why don't you write about the struggle for power and security and about love the way others do? They ask it accusingly, as if I were somehow gross, unfaithful to the honor of my craft. The easiest answer is to say that, like most humans, I am hungry. But there is more to it than that. It seems to me that our 3 basic needs, for food and security and love, are so mixed and mingled and entwined that we cannot straightly think of one without the others. So it happens that when I write of hunger, I am really writing about love and the hunger for it, and warmth and the love of it and the hunger for it, and then the warmth and richness and fine reality of hunger satisfied. And it is all one. There is food in the bowl, and more often than not, because of what honesty I have, there is nourishment in the heart to feed the wilder, more insistent hungers. We must eat. There is a communion of more than our bodies when bread is broken and wine drunk. And that is my answer when people ask me, why do you write about hunger and not wars or love?